多嘎达瓜拉瓜拉们的水，古今啊Wagi Shyac。大家好，欢迎收看一打看世界，一起看世界，我是Wagi。一打不仅要带大家一起 see the world， 更要用我们的方式说世界的故事。2025年 WIBN 年会特别企划，今天将推出最后一集的 WIBN 领导人论坛，透过 WIBN 会员台董事会代表共同对话与经验分享，一起来探讨原住民族媒体在 AI 时代的发展未来。
Okay, let's start, if I may, with you. Who One Way? Who One Way? If I can start as chair, as I said, of PBS, Taiwan's national public broadcaster, it is a big role. How are you using your position to build long-term institutional partnerships with Indigenous broadcasters like TI TV? And what is your vision for equity within the national broadcasting framework?
I'm honored to participate in this event and exchange ideas with leaders in indigenous media from around the world. So, but before answering your question, I would like to briefly introduce PTS. PTS has been providing exceptional programs for more than, I think, 27 years. So we, like public television in most of the world, we belongs to the people, not the government, and it's not for profit, but for the public interest. So, in addition to general content services, we also provide ethnic services and international communication services. So that's the reason why we have Hakka TV and Taiwanese language Dai TV to provide the different ethnic content to our public. But for multicultural, we also provide content for or from indigenous and new immigrant communities. So since assuming the chairmanship of PTS, I have actively promote the public value partnerships, hoping to work together with the organization which promote public interest in Taiwan. So we hope to collaborate with another organization and to develop action plans to address social issues in Taiwan. So for this purpose, PTS and the TI TV both are public media, and we share the same common mission or vision for public purpose. So we have to form strong partnership because we are also belong to public value partnerships. So we want to form strong partnerships to promote indigenous cultures. I'm afraid I forgot the purpose of our PTS, so I have written some words for it. With respect to PTS's indigenous media services, we strive to foster understanding and the respect for indigenous peoples among non-indigenous communities. That's the first purpose we are doing. We also strive to encourage dialogues and mutual exchange between indigenous and other ethnic groups. So that's the reason why Malao's always my brother, big brother. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. and for participating as a part of this panel. I think it's really important to have you here as a part of this discussion. So thank you for being here. Maraos, if I can come to you, I was going to ask you what the karaoke song would be tonight, but that's for later. As chair of TITV, and you've heard what your brother, I'm trying to remember who the big brother is, but you've heard the words of your brother. How are you integrating traditional Indigenous leadership principles into board governance? And how does this help strengthen the programming, but also policy nationally?
Yeah, thank you, my brother Julian. Your question is problem. Thank you. 我在想，这边也有很多的同事，那用华语也比较可以让大家共同理解。我觉得这个题目给我们很大的鼓舞，因为我们回到我们是谁，我们是用我们的传统来经营一个机构。那是同步嘛，哈 ，OK， 呀、yeah ，所以我们在董事会或者是在原文会、原民台、广播电台的企业文化，我们有很浓的原住民的本质。那我们用这个本质去流畅我们的机构。那因此，我提到几个点。第一个，原住民的共同文化里面，我们是充满热情的。我们坚持我们的文化，我们坚持我们的部落的权利。第二，我们面对新的当代或者是不断出现的殖民，我们也建立起原住民族的内在或是外在的防御能力，因此在原文会的治理里面，我觉得最核心的是我们要找到我们的精神层面，然后从精神层面去推演出我们的机构文化跟我们的节目、我们的新闻、我们的行销、我们的广播。那这次的大会其实它的很大的意义也是在共同分享这样的精神，所以在董事会或者是我们在机构的经营上，我们有很浓厚的部落的性格。我们善于去分享我们的知识，我们善于去分享我们的表情、我们的情绪，那是真的是真实的原住民的性格。所以在这段时间，我觉得我个人作为一个这样的角色，我感觉上原文会有非常丰富的这个层次传统精神层面。最后就是我们在节目的呈现上，我想我们的会员也都可以感受到台湾原住民族，我们有丰富的舞蹈、音乐跟哲学，那是来自于土地，来自于海洋，所以我们在节目呈现上，也有很多非原住民的观众会喜欢看原民台，因为原民台有自然界的节目、外景节目。有更多丰富的，可能其他频道看不到，比较活泼生动的内容，所以在这些内容上，我们可以看到，我们用我们的本质，用我们的传统，用我们的文化去呈现我们在数位载体上面的风格。那简单先做这个部分的回应，谢谢。
Thank you, Moros. I think Johan said something really profound this morning when he talked about it's not just good enough to speak Sami, but we must have something to say. It's not just good enough to speak Sami, we must have something Sami to say. We must have something Sami to say. Fetu, you have an interesting governance arrangement. You are a member of the board of Whakaata Māori. How are you advancing Māori media sovereignty, given the political climate, whilst also trying to deal and deliver to a digital-first audience, knowing you are funded by the government?
Te aroha, te wakapono, me te rangi marie, tātou tātou e. That's a song from one of the elders from my rohe. That was my uncle Morven Simon, who was an educationalist. That song was written some 30 years ago, and as far as I'm aware, it's not really recorded on the multimedia that we have access to now, but you've just heard it from me, and I grew up with that when he actually created that song, and that is one of the ways that we at Whakaata Māori share with our brothers here in Taiwan, with our sister here from Canada, and our relations from Australia. The traditions that we are living with now are alive and well, and the technology that we're using is just the new ads in our context. It's the new way to light fire. It's the new way for us to transmit our traditions and songs. So, in answer to your question, the role that I have currently at Whakaata Māori, in terms of our government country structure, it is my privilege to represent our Māori community. So, our Whakaata Māori is funded by our government, but we have a governance arrangement where the community, the tribal areas, choose 4 members, and our government chooses 3. So in light of that, we are all have a shared language imperative, regardless if you are a government appointee or a community appointee, as I am. And so when we come together as a governance board, we must use both sides of the coin, our law, L-O-R-E, which you just heard me sing, and also the laws of transmission and all the other requirements that we must have as a modern day broadcaster. So in answer to your question, it is a balancing act, and I'm thrilled to be here amongst colleagues where we all share the same joy of bringing our thousands of years old culture into AI.
Tēnā koe. And if there's anything that anyone mentions that you want to contribute to, please do so by all means. Julia, I want to come to you. APTN has matured into a global leader in Indigenous broadcasting. As the chair, what is one of the most strategic decisions your board has made or is making to ensure the network stays independent, that ensures the network stays influential given the rapidly changing media landscape and given, different to Whakaata Māori, the funding you don't get from your government?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a loaded question, and I think I'm going to blow everybody's minds by my answer. I think the number one way that, as a board of directors, that we're supporting the organization is by, first and foremost, standing behind our CEO and supporting our CEO in everything that they're doing. And I think that that's when APTN has undergone tremendous change in the last few years. We went from a very large board of directors, 21 members, to try and represent a nation of many First Nations, many different Inuit under different regional governance agreements, and the Métis people. And how do you represent all of these nations with a board? And 21 members was unsustainable, so we removed it down to a very small 12-member board. And keeping equal representation from dividing our country into 4 quadrants, and having that representation and creating a matrix that provides the leadership and very strategic specialties across the board is the best way that we were able to provide that support. So when we come back to the table, we're able to have some very concise conversations and support our CEO in making the best possible decisions moving forward. And one of those in our very recent year has been creating our Indigenous language only channel, going from 4 channels, 4 feeds, one which worked very well and 3 that were difficult to follow because they were in remote regions, and now having this strategic 1 HD channel and 1 language channel, everybody's buying into it. So I think that that's the best way that we're able to provide support, is to stand by our CEO's side. But also we eat, live, and breathe our culture. And by being present, talking about it, promoting it, we're also helping support what the core of APTN is. And I think that's a very simple solution to doing that and alleviating the responsibility of having to be the educator to the non-Indigenous people, but instead providing the support and guidance to our own Indigenous people to keep their customs, their language alive.
Thank you, Julie. It's always career enhancing, Monica. So, Aaron? But the question is, you bring both cultural and creative leadership to your role at SBS. How are you pushing from within to ensure Indigenous leadership is not just present, but truly driving systematic change at the board level at SBS, considering, of course, the eternal place to stand that NITV should have?
Yeah, look, it's an extremely difficult task. It comes with one with weight of responsibility, but also it I guess it also one that comes with legacy, and one that's been driven. I look back to the William Coopers and the Bark petitions. I mean, this is over 100 years of advocacy that has been driven. So you taking into account all that has been done. And in this position that and the privilege that I've been afforded, it's one with you want to come to the, I guess, table with diplomacy, but it's also with tenacity, and it's also strategically as well, and working closely with Tanya, who has done a phenomenal, feat. That there was when I think about the NITV space, and there was a long legacy of activism, and it came out of the report and made of the deaths in custody report. So essentially, the voice that we have been given responsibility to charge are due to the loss of lives. And that continues to happen. I think our people have long been innovators, whether you talk about transversing the entire world based on stories from the stars, or navigating from the stars, understanding sea currents. I mean, these are knowledge systems that are deeply embedded in our DNA, not just as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, Pacifica, Maori, but we all share these knowledge systems that are either, from the stars, or spoken along the winds, or written in the mountains. And that I guess to languages, which is really specific to where you come from, is also your own relationship, which dates back ancestrally. So taking upon all of that, and how I drive, I guess, in terms of what we do from a governance perspective, it's understanding that, you know, we've got there's two governance systems or three in Australia. You've got that of the Torres Strait system, you've got that of First Nations Australia, and that of colonialism or the establishment of these new systems. And I think, as my dear sister from Aotearoa also iterated, that these are two systems that can walk in path by one another, or in simultaneously one another, holding each other to account. So it's driving, understanding those systems, and how do we come to a place of co-design, which is one that we're in partnership with, I mean, supporting Tanya and her vision in this new transition that both NITV are both, I guess, moving through at this current time. But as an SBS board member, it's one that is to remain always supportive to that vision from First Nations. But also, at times it can be extremely difficult in regards to making sure that we're always working as a collective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron, and I think you've raised a really good point about the balance between traditional frameworks and managing that in a governance setting, which also has a distinct set of policy settings that you have to abide by, which are Western by nature. And maybe we'll pick up on that if we get some time. It's been interesting because the conference has talked about funding, but not in the way in which I thought it might, because it hasn't become the big hairy beast that I thought might be the issue that everyone wanted to talk about. So if I can come to you, Julie. Is funding an issue? And what strategically are you doing that protects, enhances, given the power of some really big global media companies out there that are taking audience numbers in a massive way away from our own Indigenous platforms? Is that one of the big pressing challenges or not?
Well, it's definitely a challenge. Funding is a challenge, and it's very hard to strategically think of ways that we can actually break out of it, because, as you said, there are some massive corporations out there that are taking over the stage. And I don't think that they're taking our audiences necessarily. I think that our audiences are not monitored in the same way. And that takes away from our power to get more funding. We're in Canada anyways, our listeners, they're in remote communities. And we're looking, the funders are looking at numbers out of urban centers. That's not our reality. That's not where we live. That's not where we're from. But the numbers from the urban centers typically would be more from non-Indigenous people interested in learning about us. And so calculate those numbers over and above how many Indigenous people live in our countries, and now you have a bit more of an accurate number for our audiences. So, and I think funding will always be an issue for us. I think we have to look at other innovative ways of developing partnerships, and I think that's one of the beauties of WIBN, is that we're developing partnerships that help us develop and co-create projects at a lower cost. Because I think that's just part of the reality that we're faced with. And until we're able to monetize our content more, will we be able to? I hope so one day. Then I don't think that we're in a position to say that we're going to access more funding.
Whetu, similar sentiments here for you? Because obviously with, Whakaata Māori has gone through some change, but there's political and funding uncertainty that exists and abounds, not just in Aotearoa, Australia and other places as well. So in those times, what governance approaches can you do given that reality?
First of all, it is remiss of me not to acknowledge our CEO, Shane Taurima. Homai te Pakipaki. And I say that not to be facetious, because running an organisation such as ours, which has a language and culture imperative, requires someone who has that as well. And people like Shane are in very, very short supply in our country. You probably find the same as board members. It's very difficult to, one, attract them, because we're all family and we all talk to each other and we go, watch out, if you go there, there's going to be lots of trouble for you. And so to get people of that calibre to accept the role is actually very difficult. In terms of funding, I've got probably a little bit different thoughts on that. After about 30 years in broadcasting, I'm really sorry to say that I've been in the highs and the lows, from Hollywood to the outback of Taranaki, and there's never enough money. Never, ever enough money. So I think when I look at our topic, shaping the future of Indigenous broadcasting, we need to cut out that word broadcasting, and it's actually shaping the future of ourselves as people. That is the imperative. And when you switch your mind to that, you take on a longer term thought pattern for our mokopuna after our mokopuna, than the short term, as my good dad used to say, mores of capitalism. And the short games that we are engaged in on a daily, and it's actually Shane and the team's job for that, can be mitigated at our level as governors by the pursuit of our own traditional values in the wider milieu of each and every government that we belong to. Because the advancement of Indigenous languages is ultimately the advancement of life.
Thank you, Whetu. Thank you. I think one of the other things you're talking about isn't... So obviously the point that you made is a really important one. The other point I think is about maintaining relevance, right? Maintaining relevance. So, Huanwei, can I ask you the same question about relevance? I know others have already made comments, but I am keen to get your perspective on how you keep that presence, create space, continue to allow space, given the impact of such big super organisations internationally.
In an era of where global streaming services and algorithm-driven social media dominate audience attention, PTS ensures Indigenous culture remains visible by integrating Indigenous stories into our most popular and high-quality productions. For example, the reality show is Guess Who in Mandarin, 谁来晚餐? I think most of the people here have been watched this show. Guess Who, this program, regularly features Indigenous guests and the cultural narratives. Well, the historical drama, I mentioned another drama for our audience, how to say that? Sikalo? Scalo, yes, Scalo. Formosa 1867 in Mandarin, 斯卡罗, yeah, which explores indigenous sovereignty and colonial history, reached hundreds of thousands of viewers. Beyond content, we actively adapt our distribution strategy for digital platforms, optimize visibility in algorithm-driven environments, and collaborate with indigenous creators to ensure authentic representation. I think most of the guests knows the AI is the most key factor to influence our environment. So Gen AI tools are currently widely used, especially by younger generations. So, however, these tools often fail to provide users with accurate information, and sometimes they will accelerate to spread misinformation. So so we also aim to provide AI chatbots that deliver credible information, allowing the public to enjoy accurate and reliable information while also enjoying the new technologies. So PTS will invite TITV to join this trusted AI chatbots initiative. We hope this kind of initiative can help bridge these gaps and strengthen indigenous media's presence in the digital space. Yeah, that's what we are doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Maros, if I can come back to you. After the engineer Ding's presentation today, I think everyone was ready to sign up and we're AI away. What is the role of governance and what is the responsibility of governance in overseeing the opportunities and also the risks that AI presents to all of us in our work, or at the risk of you saying it's not my role, it's the CEO's role to deal with, what do you think the role of the board should be when it comes to developing new technologies, the influence of new technologies like AI? Is it a government?
我的例子是可能会让大家更清楚，我们在面对新的科技、数位科技，我们的感受。我来自兰屿，是一个台湾东南方的一个岛。那我们在民国60年才开始有电。那在那个当下，台湾的核废料也刚放到兰屿。那对兰屿，对我们这个世代来说，核废料是一个无法解释的科学。那它对我们非常的震撼，它也就放在我们的隔壁。那我们的祖老，我们完全不能解释什么是核废料。我们于是就找到了一个字眼，就是毒药。那毒药的意思就是吃了以后会让人死掉。我们无法解释科技带给我们的伤害，因此我们原住民族在面对科技的时候，有非常多重复杂的情境。那在现今的科技，我们在使用科技的过程，也同样带给我们很多的挑战。那 AI 是我们的挑战，也是我们的机会。我觉得我们这条路是我们当下会遇到面对的必然的科技数位的冲击，但我们其实都 都还在找方法。但我觉得最重要的是我们的精神。我们是为了什么要使用 AI？ 我们为了什么要传播我们的文化？所以我们当坚持我们的精神，找到我们的精神的时候，或许有时候科学过去伤害了我们，但有的时候科技、数位也或许是我们在整个人类的历史过程里面一个很重要的一个工具。所以 AI 是挑战，那 AI 是新的挑战，我们都在找我们的方向跟目标。Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maros. Can I get some other views from members on this as well? I'm keen to hear other perspectives or anything you might want to add to that. Is this a governance role, and if so, how?
Julian, definitely I think we as board members, whilst I'm open and a huge advocate for AI, I see where, especially when I think about from my own, say, First Nations perspective in regards to how it could most definitely elevate and amplify the language groups, the 5 different language groups across the Torres Strait landscape. But also I feel that as board members, or in regards to SBS, I think that we play a critical role in regards to governance and in regards to the use of that language, especially when I think about how fragile First Nations languages are and knowledge systems are. As I'll allude to again, you spoke of the taking of information of the Maori knowledge systems. So we can't have these types of, I guess, history repeating itself once again. And we know how powerful this AI, well, I don't think we know at the moment how powerful it is, but we've certainly seen examples of the power of AI, how quick it can move, it's such a robust world. How do we make it work for First Nations, or for us as World First Nations people? How do we make it work for us? How do we protect ourselves against, the misuse and the disinformation of that? I think, but back to us as board members, in terms of, I think we do definitely play a critical role in regards to advocacy and making up those or developing those frameworks that ensure safety and protection of our First Nations groups. Because at the same time, we are also adhered to law as well as board members. And that comes with, knowledge systems that predate our existence as well. So we're going to be very careful where we tread, where we walk.
Yeah, Julian and Fitu, please.
I was just laughing because I agree with you, Maras. It is our values that is going to lead us. It's got us here this far, and that is certainly, as Indigenous peoples, it's one thing that I was very heartened to hear, that it's our values that is going to lead us to the future. And just quickly going back to governance, DERS, in parlance, Western parlance of governance, it is our job most definitely to anticipate risk. And it's also our job to measure the amount of risk appetite that our CE and our people have. But, as a Māori person and working in Māori media, my position as a Māori media person is actually shaped by my village. So in Whakaata Māori case, I live in a small provincial town. My aunties all think that I'm Shane Todemo. So when they see something that they don't like, I will be literally shopping for food for my family, and they'll go, "Niece, come over here, come over here. I did not like that program on Māori Plus. How dare they use the word damn? I want you to get rid of that word now." And, so my village calibrates my board responsibilities. And it is something I know that we all share. At home, we call it getting the jandle. You know, your auntie will literally take a shoe off and slap you around the head. Doesn't matter if you're 50 or 70, if they're older than you. It is the wisdom of the elders that will calibrate you.
Values was mentioned before by Whetū. Julie, I wanted to ask about values. How to uphold those Indigenous values whilst also trying to compete in a really competitive media market at the moment? Because it must be a really delicate balancing act. Or not, maybe.
Well, it is. Values can be very difficult to uphold, especially in a landscape that's as broad and wide as the APTN landscape. We represent different First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, as I mentioned, and although at the core we all have very similar values, we all come from very different landscapes, which dictate what our value systems are. So by having that representation from the four corners definitely helps uphold the values of each of the groups. But even more than that, I don't want to take credit for this. It's not something that we as a board did, but it's definitely something that we as a board supported and now uphold, is the people and culture system. And at APTN, we don't have a human resources. We have people and culture. And the structure of APTN has been developed to follow the core value system. And so we've adopted that as part of our governance structure. We follow the colonial systems, but very, very loosely. We've given ourselves permission as a board to govern the way that we feel we need to govern as Indigenous peoples, with the mutual respect around the table to do so.
Yep, keen to get other thoughts, because it must be, I mean, it may be easier for Kāta Māori Whetū, but must be interesting. SBS, Aaron?
Look, look, we're going through an extremely interesting particular time period, and I think for us, as there's a transition to now, we've moved Tanya across into post The Voice, into what the voice would actually look like in the SBS machine. And now, Tanya's in the midst of, developing and creating the strategy behind how we embed and integrate First Nations across the entire SBS beast, or the SBS machine, as I should say. And which I think that'll be, again, it'll be an interesting time come in the very to come board meeting to actually endorse that particular strategy, but also what that means for NITV as well. I think there's an opportunity for SBS to really bloom and blossom with the new frameworks in regards to that particular structure and business model, and what that means for additional funding allocations in the future as we move forward to, in regards to the digital first strategy. I feel that I'm actually really, really excited in regards to the commercialisation of First Nations, but also how that can be led across the SBS frameworks in space, and how we integrate First Nations first, which is essentially our first story, our country's first story.
Yep.
And therefore it's not no longer an add-on or an additive to the multicultural space, where in fact we actually lead that space with our first story.
Yeah. We've probably got time for one more question, but I want to ask, and I think it's really important, it's about legacy, actually, because you are all in influential positions and you're all leaders. So what is the next big thing that you want to do that will create and leave a legacy for your organisations that will also have benefit for the communities? What is that? Perhaps if I could start with you, Chair. Why?
From a multicultural perspective, I hope that the legacy of our board will be one of the inclusiveness. Yeah, I really think through mutual understanding and collaboration will foster, the understanding between different ethnic groups and can elevate human civilization. So that's a reason why I think inclusiveness is the key issue for us. As media professionals, we are first and foremost human beings living in the real world. So to serve the public well, we must act with integrity and uphold human dignity. This is the principle I strive to follow and the standard I expect our board to embody. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Haritonu, please, Fitu.
I think that that we as Indigenous peoples hold the key to longevity with our ways of communicating with our Mother Earth and our Sky Father, which includes the transmission of the work that we do. And I think the legacy that was passed down to every single person in this room is the thing that Whakaata Māori strives every day to embody, and I believe that is the most important thing, is our people. The legacy that I hope to leave is one that was already given to me, and that was our focus on our future, on our rangatahi. And it is the youth of today that will be our leaders of tomorrow. And we hope and pray that what Whakaata Māori is able to inspire and give to them is the legacy that as strategic leaders we are able to give to them as was gifted to us by our ancestors. Yeah.
I struggled with this one a little bit. It's really hard to think about legacy in that big sense. And one of the things that I strive to do and work to do in everything that I do, not just at the governance level, is to continue to pave the path forward for our youth. In the Inuit context, 70% of our youth population, the youth population represents 70% under the age of 30. So we need to pave a path for them and help them so that they can become our future leaders. And I'm actually going to steal your words, because in your presentation, it really struck me, and I think that that's where we can help our youth going forward and leave behind the best of us for them and for future generations. And it's, as you said, in a world where we're being erased, we need to be international leaders, and I think that's what I hope to accomplish.
Well, mine's not too different. As a grandfather now, I think definitely my focus is on my grandson and my future grandchildren that will come forth at some time. but I guess for me, it's how I continue to, turn up with extreme accountability, with integrity, with honesty, with compassion, with love, understanding. How I continue that legacy of how my forebearers have left this world in a much better place than they found it, and how I continue to do that for my future generations through driving storytelling, through advocacy, elevating and amplifying and revitalizing language, cultural practices, law. But Granddad's got to lead it. Granddad's got to walk it. He's got to walk the talk.
Kia ora, brother. Thank you. If we can end on you, Maraos, you're already a legend and therefore have a legacy. But your legacy, what would you like to leave?
IPCF, we want concern, connection more with our neighbor. Yeah, and then the other, our vision, we want to produce more wonderful story in Taiwan. Thank you.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, aioi.
Please keep it going for our wonderful panelists and their insights and experiences.
以上就是今天的一打看世界，我是Wagi，感谢您的收看，我们下周再会。